Hello, Viking.TV. My name is Matt Grimes, and I'm the Vice President of Maritime Operations, looking after the ships of our ocean fleet and soon to be launched expedition ships. I've been with Viking since 2012. In fact, I was one of the first people to join the ocean team back when we were located in Wimbledon, London. But since then, we've moved to Switzerland, and now I'm talking to you from my office in a rather chilly and snowy Basel. Now, it's my great pleasure to be able to talk to you today about our British Isles Explorer. And the reason for that is twofold. Firstly, you can tell from my voice that I am in fact British, and it's always great to talk about your home country when you are far away from home. And secondly, one of my roles at Viking is that I'm the lucky guy who actually designs the itineraries. So I'm actually presenting to you today my own work. However, I must tell you that itineraries are just like children. You shouldn't really have a favourite, but if I was to pick one, I think the British Isles Explorer would be high up there. Now, in just a moment, we'll take a look at the itinerary. But before we do so, I want to let you know at the end of this session, you will have the opportunity to send questions for me to answer. And in fact, I see that there are already a wealth of questions lining up for me. I'm delighted to tell you that for this question and answer session, I'll be joined by my colleague Joost Oendaag, who is actually a regular presenter on Viking.TV. And between us, we'll do our best to answer any questions you have. Also assisting us behind the scenes today is James and Heather. So let's start by taking a look at a short video about the itinerary.
Immerse yourself in the treasures of the British Isles on a remarkable 15-day voyage with Viking. With 2 days in charming Bergen, you can explore the historic Bryggen waterfront, the home of renowned composer Edvard Grieg, and enjoy its majestic peaks. In Scotland's Shetland Islands, step into the last vestiges of empires past. Learn about the Shetland Bus, a heroic effort to save Norwegians during World War II. And of course, meet the island's friendliest residents. In the Scottish Highlands, legendary Loch Ness and impressive Iroquois Castle delight the imagination. Edinburgh, with its famous castle and old town, promise more civilized pleasures. The Orkney Islands greet you with verdant landscapes, fascinating architecture, and remnants of civilizations that date to the Viking Age and long before. While the staggering beauty of the Wester Ross presents another side of magical Scotland. In Belfast, you can explore the city's landmarks, or set out for the majesty of Giant's Causeway. Liverpool's waterfront is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, and of course the city is hallowed ground for Beatles fans. The coastal Welsh city of Holyhead will charm you with its natural beauty and historic castles, while Ireland's Dublin is one of Europe's great capitals of culture. Your journey ends in magnificent London, where a 2-day stay gives you ample time for an in-depth exploration of such famous places as Westminster Abbey, Buckingham Palace, and nearby Stonehenge.
So let's first take a look at what it means to take a Viking cruise. We describe this broadly as the Viking way. We focus on onshore experiences, which get you closer to what you need to see, the history, the culture, the daily life of the destinations we take you to. And of course, we do this through our included excursion program. In fact, on the itinerary I'm going to show you, there are 12 included excursions and also an array of optional excursions which take you to other places around the destinations we call at. Now, we categorise our excursions into 3 broad categories. Firstly, local life. These are experiences that provide fascinating insights that reveal the rhythms of daily life in the destinations that we go to. not least here on the British Isles, but also in the Norwegian port that we go to on this itinerary. Working world, that's one of my favourites. This helps you understand how the locals not just live their lives, but how they work, how they create an economy, their arts, their crafts, what is unique and special to the destination, and how are their working lives changed by the landscape that surrounds them. In Norway, for example, we take you to the Dale sweater factory. In other videos, you may have seen some of my colleagues wearing some of their sweaters. We also take you to world-renowned distilleries in Scotland. Distilleries, of course, making whiskey. And even in northern Wales, Wales famous for their sheep, we can take you to see how a sheepdog trainer trains the dogs that work hard on the local farms. Privilege access also is worthy of mention. This is something we work tremendously hard on. It helps get our Viking guests behind the scenes at many of the locations we go to discover local treasures. Often these experiences are not available to the general public, and you probably won't find them through any other company either. And that's due, of course, to our special relationships with some of the venues that we take our guests to. On this itinerary in particular, there's some very good examples of privileged access in the Scottish Highlands and also in Liverpool, where you can join an after-hours tour of the Beatles Museum, or even, one of my favourites, visit the Tower of London. So let's look into the itinerary itself. It's 15 days. The journey starts in Bergen in Norway and ends in magnificent Greenwich in the heart of London. Now, of course, you can sail this itinerary in the opposite direction as well. There's a total of 12 tours included, and we're going to look at those now in detail and also some of the optional excursions available to you so you can customise your experience in each of the destinations. We shouldn't forget, of course, also that in Bergen there are fantastic pre-cruise and post-cruise opportunities, and we'll talk you through that as well. There's also a very vibrant programme of pre and post excursions available from Greenwich. So let's take a look at the itinerary. The itinerary map outlines where you'll travel through the British Isles. In fact, the total distance sailed is just a little bit under 2,100 nautical miles, all the way from Bergen to Greenwich. Of course, we embark in Bergen, Norway's second largest city, and your voyage concludes in London, England's capital city. So let's explore British Isles Explorer port by port. What's really special about this itinerary is how it truly maximises your time in Northern Europe. In only 15 days, you'll have the opportunity to visit 6 different countries. I think you'll experience the very best of history, culture and cuisine, not only of Norway and England, but also Scotland, Ireland, Northern Ireland, and also Wales. Now, let's take a closer look at the day by day of this fascinating itinerary. Day 1. Welcome to Bergen, Norway, where your voyage begins. Now, if you've arranged air travel through Viking, we will transfer you from the airport to the ocean ship, and you'll get plenty of time to experience Bergen as we spend the night in the port. Now, a little tip for those flying into Bergen. If you land in a southerly direction and you're lucky enough to be sitting on the left-hand side of the aeroplane, you will be treated to a magnificent view of the old harbour of Bergen as you make your final approach into Bergen Airport, which is now a very modern, renovated facility about 25 minutes south of the port itself. So a very short and easy transfer. If you're not on the left-hand side and you're not landing in a southerly direction, don't worry. The scenery around Bergen and around the airport as you fly in is absolutely breathtaking, from mountains very close to the coast with snow-capped peaks to deep and long fjords and even a chain of islands just off the coast. with all the boat traffic and activity that happens in a maritime city laid out before you through your window on the aeroplane. So please, I hope it's a sunny day and you get to enjoy the view. Now, after boarding your ship and settling into your own veranda stateroom, the afternoon and evening, of course, are yours. You can relax or you can choose to explore the city. The great thing about the size of our ships, they are relatively small, which means we can park or berth the ship relatively close to the city centre. In fact, you're probably not more than a 10-minute easy stroll along the wharf to the UNESCO World Heritage Site located directly in the centre of the city, known as the Bruggen Wharf. And apologies to the Norwegians watching if I mispronounce some of the names. As I said before, the Port of Bergen is surrounded by majestic mountains, fjords and glaciers, and you'll very quickly understand why Bergen was one of the inspirations for the Viking sagas. During the evening, I would recommend you go and mingle with the locals ashore. They are amongst the friendliest people I have met. Along the Bruggen are a wealth of restaurants. I recommend you try the seafood, all of course locally caught and sold through the local fish market. We spend the night in Bergen, so there's no need to hurry. Enjoy dessert and maybe a coffee before you stroll the short distance back to spend the first night on board. It's truly a fantastic place to go and explore of an evening. Of course, after staying in port overnight, we get to spend a second day in port. You can enjoy breakfast on board. Of course, there are numerous venues on board. Personally, I very much enjoy Mamsen's up on deck 7. Quite appropriate in Bergen because Mamsen's serves an array of Norwegian food. I highly recommend the waffles. After breakfast, enjoy your included tour. In Bergen, we do a panoramic tour of the city. This is great because you can relax on your motor coach as you tour the main sites. To pick a few off, King Haakon's Hall, which is actually very close to the ship, the Rosenkrantz Tower, the picturesque wooden buildings which form the Bruggen site, and also the fish market, which maybe you had some fish from for dinner the night before. Also, the Nordens Peninsula is a great place to visit. It's well known for its 19th century white wooden painted houses. So very picturesque and great photo opportunities during that tour. Of course, if you're feeling a little more active, you might want to try the Mount Fluen hike. You can climb up over 1,000 feet to the top of Bergen and enjoy spectacular views. There's a wonderful viewpoint at the top there with interpretive panels detailing the views that you can see. And of course, one of the views you can see is your beautiful Viking ocean ship, which will be directly beneath you in the harbour in the city centre berth. Sailing on then, let's move to day 3. By now, you have arrived in Scotland. In fact, the very north of Scotland, where you can admire the rugged beauty of one of the country's most remote island outposts. We'll be calling to the port of Lerwick, which is the capital of the Shetland Islands, and after breakfast on board, you can choose one of the following tours. Again, there is an included excursion. This time it's the Shetland Panorama and Ponies. This includes a stop at one of the coastal castles, and you can also see and learn about the world-famous Shetland ponies and take in some of the picturesque landscapes.
The wind-swept Shetland Islands, where the Atlantic Ocean collides with the North Sea, is home to some unique and fascinating characters.
I was born and bred in the house that I'm still in, and I've stayed in Shetland all my life.
Carol Fuller is a wrangler and breeder whose family has long loved the island's iconic residents.
There have been 3 generations that's had the Shetland ponies. They're part of my life.
While the Shetland pony dates to the Bronze Age, it was primarily breeding with Døle ponies brought by the Vikings that created the sprightly breed we see today.
Oh, their spirits is pretty high. They have high spirits. Everyone has a different personality. They're a big white one. She always stands with her head up, lugs up, and ears up and everything. See me.
Though the hardy Shetland pony has long thrived here, its life has rarely been easy.
When I was young, the ponies wasn't for fun, they were work horses. All the craft work was done on the ponies, there were no tractors. They did the carting in the hay, carting in the corn, ploughing the rigs, everything was done on a pony.
And in 1847, when the British banned children from the coal mines, the tough Shetland pony went to work underground. For years they were in constant demand, since these resilient, sure-footed wonders could move loads of coal up to 3,000 miles a year.
They were usually down 2 weeks and up 2 weeks. The ponies was treated very well, and they say the ponies was treated much better than the men.
In such a spacious, relaxed setting, one could easily assume that raising the highly intelligent, extremely patient Shetland pony would be a piece of cake. I was quickly assured that was not the case.
No. You must be good to them. You have to be good to them. But you have to make sure that they know you're the boss. It's just like a dog.
Much like an artist who hates to part with their paintings, Carol often holds on to her ponies. They stay and become part of the family.
At one point I had 6 generations. If they go from me as a foal, they go to some other body. But if they live past a year old, they're aside me for their life. My oldest mare was 35. She was a good old lady. She was a very good old lady.
One thing's for sure, Shetlands are highly addictive. They even hooked Queen Elizabeth, who rode them throughout her childhood. While these precocious ponies top out at only 42 inches, don't let their diminutive stature fool you. Pound for pound, they're actually the strongest of the horse family, able to pull twice their body weight. And one thing they're certainly not short of is personality.
I always say they're like the weather clock. Whichever way the wind is coming from, you'll always see them standing with their rear ends to the wind.
I hope you too will do as I did and pay a visit to Carol and her ponies in the remarkable Shetland Islands.
Of course, if you want to try something different from the panoramic tour, we have a great tour, Shetland Seabirds Experience by Boat. This is an optional tour, but it will give you unrivaled natural spectacles and a very memorable photographic opportunities of the Shetland wildlife. Now, I speak as if you have to make a choice. Do you have to choose the included or do you have to choose the optional? Well, in Shetland, we have a full day. In fact, in many of our ports, we have very long port stays. So in fact, you could do both if you wish to. You could take the optional in the morning and the included in the afternoon. Another option for you is to discover the ancient civilizations of the Shetlands. This tour takes you through Lerwick, the capital, and down to the island's most southerly point, passing through some of the very small and quaint villages along the way. Down in the south of the island, you can explore the prehistoric and Norse settlements, learning about the ancient history and culture of the Shetland Islands. So after a fantastic day in Lerwick, the ship will sail south to the mainland of Scotland and to the port of Invergordon. And this is the gateway to the Highlands region of Scotland. In fact, you might describe it as the doorstep to the mountainous and heather-covered Scottish Highlands. It is a wonderful approach into Invergordon. Your destination experience doesn't start when you get off the ship. For those who are up early, you'll be treated to some magnificent views as we approach the coast. This area is one of Europe's most sparsely populated regions. You will have a fascinating glimpse into the days of the warring clans. The included tour today is the Inverness Scenic Drive. Inverness is interesting because it's the cultural capital of the Scottish Highlands. And here you can explore what is Scotland's northernmost city that sits on the banks of the Ness River. The optional tour today, highly recommended, the Glenmorangie Distillery and Dornoch. Glenmorangie is a world-renowned whisky distillery. It's a fantastic experience. You can go and taste the whisky at the end of the tour, and you will also be able to explore the very quaint and historic town of Dornoch. Another option for you is Cawdor Castle and the Culloden battlefield. This is really the best of Highlands history and heritage. Here you can experience a romantic, stately Scottish Highlands home, and also see the site of the last battle that was fought on British soil. So day 5 and on to Edinburgh. We will sail south from Inverness and up the famous majestic Firth of Forth to reach the city, and the ship will anchor off a small village called Newhaven, where we tender you ashore and then take a short ride into the city itself. Today you'll be able to take in the medieval and neoclassical beauty of Scotland's capital. It's gracefully set among rocky hills and green ribbons of park. And there is a wealth of tours for you to choose from in this destination. The included tour today is Edinburgh Highlights. This will allow you to see all the highlights of Scotland's capital city, particularly the 17th and 18th century architecture, which the city is famous for, ironically referred to as the New Town, even though it's many hundreds of years old. And of course, the magnificent Edinburgh Castle, which sits high above the city on a craggy outcrop. There's also optional tours available for you today. One of my personal favourites is the Royal Yacht Britannia and Ultimate Edinburgh. I'm sure you'll know, but the very elegant Royal Yacht Britannia was once the floating home of Her Majesty the Queen and the royal family. And Britannia over the years has hosted many state and official occasions during its 43 years of service in the Royal Navy. And I have something of a personal connection to the Royal Yacht Britannia, as I was lucky enough to be in Portsmouth when the ship arrived for the last time as a Royal Navy vessel and performed her decommissioning service in Portsmouth in the presence of Her Majesty the Queen and other members of the royal family, a day that I still remember today. And in fact, I can tell you from having visited Britannia in her new home in Edinburgh, she is maintained to the same scrupulous standards that the Royal Navy maintained her. So when you go to the ship, you will absolutely see her as she was when the Queen used to sail around the world. After visiting the Royal Yacht Britannia, you'll move on to Edinburgh Castle, which includes a short panoramic tour of the Old Town, including highlights such as the famous Royal Mile and also Canongate. Now, if you want to escape the city and see some of the countryside in the surrounding area, then I would recommend historic St Andrews. Of course, if you're a fan of golf, you won't want to miss this tour, because St Andrews is, of course, a famous golfing venue with a beautiful course, and it's home to the Royal and Ancient Golf Club, founded in 1754, and has since become the utmost authority on the rules of the game. We give you some free time here to be able to explore the town at your leisure, and you can enjoy a delicious 2-course lunch at one of the local restaurants. If you choose to after lunch, you're free to browse some of the many golf shops and perhaps pick up a special memento of your visit. If golf is not your thing, then perhaps you should travel to Broom Hall, home of the family Bruce. This is one of our optional excursions, but it gives you an exceptionally rare glimpse into Scottish royal history at the family home of King Robert the Bruce. The Bruce family has been at the heart of Scotland's history since the 12th century, when Robert the Bruce took the throne and secured Scottish independence from England at the Battle of Bannockburn. A member of the Bruce family will greet you, and following a welcome drink, you can enjoy a fascinating journey through over 1,000 years of Scottish history. So after a fantastic day in Edinburgh, Scotland's capital city, the ship was going to sail north again, and this time to another group of islands, the Orkney Islands, and the capital of the Orkney Islands, Kirkwall.
In the 8th century, Scotland's rugged Orkney Islands were coveted by the Vikings. The vast, fertile lands and easy access to Britain ultimately proved irresistible, and the archipelago fell under Norse control for nearly 600 years. While the Vikings have long since vanished, part of their culture remains, including language, like the name Orkney, shortened from the Viking original, Orkneyjar. Perhaps the best-known area of the Orkneys is Scapa Flow, where the calm surface of this waterway belies its turbulent past. It was here at the end of World War I that more than 50 German warships were scuttled by their own sailors. Tragedy struck again in 1939, when the British warship Royal Oak was torpedoed and sunk. Today, only the block ships remain, silent witnesses to the tragedies that unfolded in these waters. One of the Orkney's more unusual sights is a tiny chapel built by Italian prisoners of war. Using ingenuity and imagination, they transformed a corrugated steel building, plus whatever scraps they could find, into a sacred work of art. In the heart of Kirkwall lies another treasure, the Cathedral of St. Magnus. Built by the Norse Earls of Orkney nearly 900 years ago, it holds the unusual distinction of being owned by the city rather than the church, and of possessing its own dungeon. The Orkneys also have remnants of long-lost civilizations. The Ring of Brodgar and the standing stones of Stenness start the imagination running. These Neolithic monuments may be the oldest in the British Isles, dating back to approximately 2500 BC. And along the coast, the settlement at Skara Brae is older still. It's the best preserved Neolithic village in Western Europe and offers a fascinating window into the past. Scotland's remarkable Orkney Islands present an extraordinary tapestry of natural and cultural wonders. I hope you too will do what I did and explore the heart of this archipelago for yourself.
So today you get a chance to immerse yourself in the very rich history of the Orkney Islands. Curiously enough, ruled by the Vikings from the 9th to as recently as the 13th century. You might want to choose our included tour today, which is Highlights of Historic Orkney. On this tour, you can see the standing stones of Stenness, 5,000-year-old circle of stones, and explore this ancient monument on foot. You'll also be able to visit the well-preserved Stone Age settlement of Skara Brae. For the whisky fans, another chance at a whisky tasting today. This time, though, on a privileged access tour. We'll take you to the distillery at Highland Park, which is actually the world's most northerly whisky distillery. The staff there are going to teach you about the ingredients and also the traditional processes that they've adopted that give Highland Park's award-winning whisky its unique character. And of course, there will be a chance to taste their product during the excursion. So after a great day in Kirkwall, the ship's going to sail back towards the mainland. In fact, we're going to be passing one of the UK's most famous landmarks, which is John O'Groats, the very northern end of mainland Britain. And the ship will pass this just a few hours after departing Kirkwall and carry on around the very top of Scotland, arriving into Ullapool the next morning. Now, along the way, you get to sail through some of the fantastic scenery of the Western Isles. And once you're in Ullapool, you can explore more of the Highlands on the pristine waters of Loch Broom. The included tour here we call Explore Picturesque Ullapool. Never has an excursion been more aptly named, because it's truly wonderful landscape in this part of the world. You'll explore Ullapool, which is a small fishing town located in a spectacularly remote area of the Highlands. And here you'll learn more about local folklore and hear some live music performed by one of the very talented local artists. If you want to travel a little further afield, you might want to try our garden tour. You can visit Itinerary Gardens and witness an array of colour during a tour of one of the Highlands National Trust properties. You can see an absolute wealth of fauna here. Himalayan rhododendrons, Tasmanian eucalyptus, and many Chilean and South African plants. And they'll explain to you why this is on the tour, because the coast here is lapped by the tail end of the Gulf Current. So there's a wonderful microclimate in this part of the world, which allows them to grow this fantastic diversity of plants. You may, of course, want to visit a castle, in which case we can take you to the home of the chief of the Clan Mackenzie, the Earl of Cromarty. His family has lived here for over 500 years, and it's one of the few castles in Scotland still occupied by the original family, and in fact it remains very much a family home today. This is a privilege access excursion, and the privilege is that in fact the Earl himself will personally conduct your tour today. Not to be missed, that one. Sailing further south through the rest of the Western Isles, we'll arrive in Belfast. Welcome to Northern Ireland. This is the midway point of our British Isles journey. Belfast is of course a historic city that's undergone an incredible renaissance in recent years, bolstering its economy and also its culture. Our included tour today is a historic Belfast city tour. You can enjoy the main sites of Belfast, including the Grand Opera House, the Albert Memorial Clock, Queen's University and the Botanic Gardens. Be sure though to keep a watch for Belfast's political wall murals. This is a unique cultural touchstone and of course the heritage from the Troubles. If you're a fan of food, then you might want to try the Belfast Food Trail. This optional tour is actually one of our guests' favourites, and food fans amongst you will not want to miss it. It's a walking tour, but it centres on cuisine. You'll be able to learn about Northern Ireland's specialities from a food connoisseur and local producers. And perhaps the best part of this tour is, of course, you can enjoy frequent and generous samples of favourite food and drink along the way. After a great day in Belfast, we cross the Irish Sea back to the mainland of the UK and to Liverpool. Liverpool, famously, of course, the birthplace of the Beatles and now a stunning cultural centre, not only of soaring churches but impressive architecture, particularly from the Victorian era. Our included tour today is Iconic Liverpool. On this excursion, you can discover some of cosmopolitan Liverpool's most impressive architectural and cultural sites, such as the Liverpool Philharmonic Hall and the Albert Dock, which was once a thriving industrial hub, shipping goods across the world and receiving goods inbound to the country. You will make a stop at Liverpool Cathedral. This is the largest Anglican cathedral in Britain, and in fact the 5th largest in the world. Now this stop in Liverpool, in this direction of the itinerary, is very special because we make a late night departure, and that allows you to do a privileged access excursion called A Night with the Beatles. On this excursion, we're going to take you to the fantastic magical Beatles Museum, where you can meet a Beatles expert who will lead you through the world's largest privately owned collection of Beatles memorabilia. At the end of the tour, you'll even be able to listen to a local Beatles tribute group. If you're a music fan, I highly recommend this one. It's a really great tour, and you will get to see artifacts that are simply not on display anywhere else in the world. After our extended stay in Liverpool, the ship will sail back down the River Mersey out into the North Sea, along the North Wales coast to Holyhead. So welcome to Wales. Holyhead is a cosy coastal enclave on the northwestern tip of Wales. It's situated at the very far extremity of Anglesey. The town is contained within one of the few three-walled Roman forts in Europe, protected, of course, on the fourth side by the sea. In fact, it's a transportation hub with many ferries leaving daily to both Belfast and Dublin. Our included tour takes you across the island of Anglesey to Beaumaris. It's a walking tour of a beautiful coastal town where you can choose to visit the castle, which is one of the finest examples of great medieval castles found in Wales. Curiously, the construction was never actually completed, but the castle still dominates the town, and its concentric defensive walls and surrounding moat are truly something to see and behold. For the railway fans, you might want to try the Festiniog Railway and Lunch optional excursion. The Festiniog Railway is one of the oldest of Wales' narrow gauge railways. It was founded way back in 1832, originally as an industrial railway bringing slate from the quarries of Blanau and Porthmadog to the coast. And from the coast, the slate was transported all over the world. And in fact, through my role with Viking, I've travelled to many places around the world and found Festiniog slate in the most remarkable of places. You'll ride the train, which of course has fantastic scenic views of the North Wales landscape. You'll see tranquil pastures, lush oak forests, and the stunning waterfalls of Snowdonia National Park. If you'd like to take in some of the nature of this area, then I would recommend the RSPB Conway excursion. The RSPB is a British charity, the Royal Society for the Protection of Birds, and they've established an idyllic wetland nature reserve along the Conwy estuary, overlooked by spectacular mountains. The reserve stretches to around 120 acres, and it provides a habitat for a wide variety of wildlife, such as lapwings, curlews, oystercatchers, warblers, and egrets. Be sure to take your cameras, be sure to take your binoculars. It is a super trip out to enjoy the nature of this beautiful part of the country. And on a personal note, whilst I shouldn't have favourite itineraries and I shouldn't have favourite ports, Holyhead is actually very close to where my family go on vacation every year, and it's one of our favourite places in the UK. Sail across then the Irish Sea from Wales to Ireland, this time Dublin, the capital of the Republic of Ireland, situated on the lovely Liffey River. Originally it was founded as a Viking settlement, but today it's one of Europe's most significant cultural hubs. The included tour today is called City Views of Dublin. One of the highlights of this tour is passing by Ireland's oldest university, Trinity College. It was founded way back in 1592 by Queen Elizabeth I, and Trinity's library is home to one of the world's most famous books, the Book of Kells, which is a beautiful hand-illuminated manuscript of the Gospels. We can't mention Dublin without, of course, mentioning Guinness. If you would like to try a taste of the most famous beer in the world, perhaps, then try the Guinness Connoisseur Experience. You'll get to learn what goes into making a pint of Ireland's most famous export on this exclusive experience. Discover how important good technique is to pulling the perfect pint, from the way you hold the glass, the speed at which the stout enters it, and of course the time it takes for the pint to settle. Then, of course, after all that hard work of pouring the pint, you can sit back, relax, and savour a pint of the famous black stuff. Now, after all these fabulous destinations, all these incredibly interesting excursions, it's probably time to have a little bit of rest. And so the next day, we will spend cruising the English Channel. First part, you'll be sailing south through the Irish Sea and through a short stretch of the Atlantic Ocean before turning to the east and travelling up the English Channel along the south coast of the UK. Now, a day on board means you'll have time to enjoy our beautiful ships. I would particularly point you towards the artwork. In fact, through the Viking Voyager app, you can take a guided tour of all the pieces of art on the ship. Or perhaps, relax with a book in the library, or enjoy a cocktail from the bar. After a hard week and a half of exploring, of course, you may want to pamper yourself. And so this is the perfect time to enjoy a relaxing treatment in our onboard spa. And again, a personal tip, you should not miss the snow room. That's a very unique experience to Viking Ocean ships. And, if you were inspired by your trip to the Dala factory in Bergen, our shops will be open today on board, and this is perhaps your chance to buy your very own Viking Dala sweater. So after a relaxing day at sea, enjoying the pleasures of the facilities on board, the ship will arrive into Dover. Dover has been an incredibly important port for England and the UK, and its importance dates all the way back to the Bronze Age. One of the highlights of today is our included tour, which takes you to historic Canterbury. During the tour, you'll get to visit the medieval city, which was made famous, I think, perhaps most through Geoffrey Chaucer's Canterbury Tales. And indeed today, it is being preserved as a UNESCO World Heritage Site. If you wish to, you can choose to spend some of your free time during the excursion visiting the magnificent Canterbury Cathedral. We also have an optional tour which focuses more on the cathedral and also nearby Leeds Castle. Leeds Castle, of course, being one of the most recognisable castles in England, over 900 years old, and a sight to behold with crenellated walls and towers. It's not the only castle in Kent, Kent being the county in which Dover is located, and Kent being known as the Garden of England. Also on the options today is Sissinghurst Castle Gardens. Here you can enjoy a smaller scale castle, but a wonderful set of gardens surrounding an Elizabethan era mansion. And the gardens are designed in the classic English country style. So if you're a gardens fan, this is definitely not to be missed. And I would recommend that you head towards Sissinghurst to enjoy a day in those wonderful gardens. All too soon, the trip to Dover is over. We get back on the ship and we sail through the famous Straits of Dover, around the coast of the UK and into the Thames estuary. Now, of course, my role at Viking is that of maritime operations, and I would be selling myself short if I didn't make something of the spectacular approach to Greenwich along the River Thames. We'll be taking the pilots on board at a place called North East Spit, and the pilots will guide us up the Thames. And of course, there is a Viking connection with the Thames because the Vikings would raid up the Thames far up into London during the 9th century. There's no Vikings other than ourselves today cruising up the River Thames, but enjoy the scenery as you go. It starts with the flat marshlands of northern Kent and southern Essex, And as the estuary narrows and the river becomes less wide, you get into some spectacular scenery. First passing under the magnificent Dartford Crossing Bridge, passing through the industrial heart of the East End of London, and through the world-famous Thames Barrier, where our captain and pilots weave the ship gently through with only meters to spare on either side. You'll pass by London City Airport, one of the world's most city-central international airports, before rounding the bend outside the Millennium Dome, now known as the O2 Marina, where the ship will pirouette 180 degrees and then sail backwards down the river for a couple of miles, passing the former Royal Navy College at Greenwich, before coming to rest at our moorings just off the historic ship Cutty Sark and right in the heart of London, with terrific views of Canary Wharf and up the river towards Westminster. There is so much to discover in London and Greenwich. We do, of course, spend an overnight stay here. You might want to discover more of Greenwich itself, in which case there's an included walking tour, which focuses on Greenwich's very rich maritime and royal history. I mentioned before the Cutty Sark. This ship was built in 1869 and has now been preserved in the centre of Greenwich, right on the riverfront. And you'll be able to explore the ship. In fact, you'll even be able to explore under the ship and see the very special hull that made this one of the fastest tea clippers of its day. Nearby is also the National Maritime Museum and also the iconic Royal Navy College, which stretches all the way down to the riverfront and is now repurposed, in fact, as accommodation and lecture rooms for Greenwich University. So you'll probably see some students wandering around the grounds, enjoying a learning experience in one of the most spectacular buildings in Britain. Of course, the reason we take the ship to Greenwich is that it's only a short drive away from central London itself. So you'll be able to take in this regal city and all of its splendour. You'll see the Tower of London, Parliament and Big Ben, Westminster Abbey, Buckingham Palace, St Paul's Cathedral, the wonderful Tower Bridge. In fact, if you're lucky, you may see Tower Bridge still lifting its arches to let ships and yachts pass under. Now, of course, being docked in Greenwich and being so close to the spectacular sights of London, we're able to offer you an incredibly special experience, a privileged access excursion called Ceremony of the Keys, which takes place in the Tower of London. You can enjoy what is truly a unique experience and centuries-old tradition, not normally available to be seen by members of the public. The Tower of London has been the setting for many great events during its 1,000-year history. It's been a royal palace, a fortress, prison, rather grimly, a place of execution, and still to this day, it is a jewel house where, of course, we keep the royal family's crown jewels. During your tour of this fantastic monument, you'll be able to witness the age-old tradition of the Ceremony of the Keys. This has been enacted every night, without fail, for almost 700 years, even during a pandemic. It's carried out by the Chief Yeoman Warder of the Tower, and it essentially is a ceremony around the locking up of the palace, of the castle, for the evening, and you will be able to have a front row seat to witness this ceremony taking place. Truly fantastic, truly unique. I highly, highly recommend it. The following day, sadly, of course, your voyage concludes here in London. After breakfast, remember, the waffles, of course, many of you will disembark and you'll proceed to the airport for your return flight home. However, That doesn't necessarily mean it's the end of your experience with us. You may want to opt to continue your voyage with one of our extension packages. And on the next few slides, I'll go over what your extension options are with this itinerary. But for now, I hope you've enjoyed your detailed look at British Isles Explorer. As I said at the start, I shouldn't have favourites, but if I had to pick one, I think this would be the itinerary that I would choose to cruise on. So as I said, the cruise itself concludes in Greenwich, London, but there is a wealth of things to discover in the UK, and you may want to choose to extend your experience with us through one of our post-cruise extensions. We have several on offer. Churchill's Britain is 5 nights long. Churchill, of course, requires no introduction, and through this extension, you'll be able to discover some of the sights of his life, including a privileged access to the Churchill war rooms deep under the heart of central London, where Churchill fought the war, through the war rooms and the communication systems and so on. And you'll see all of this underneath. Fascinating museum and very much worth the visit. You'll travel outside London as well, down into Kent to Chartwell, his family home, and you'll also visit Blenheim Palace, a spectacular building where Churchill was actually born. Of course, there's an incredible wealth of things to see and do in London. You may simply want to choose to extend your stay there by a couple of nights. In fact, we offer a simple 2-night package so you can explore independently, but with the benefit of having a Viking representative in your hotel. So if you need any advice or any arrangements made, someone is there to assist you. London's not the only place you can do a pre or post excursion. Of course, let's go back to the start of the itinerary and Bergen. Again, Bergen, whilst a small city, has a wealth of sights and experiences to discover. And so we offer the chance to spend 2 nights in a central hotel in Bergen. Again, with a local Norwegian guide available to you to give you advice and tips on how to make the best out of your time there. Also on offer is the best of Norway, which includes a scenic train ride. This is 4 nights. It is truly one of the greatest railway journeys in the world between Bergen and Oslo. You'll pass over the high plateau of Finse in central southern Norway, travelling towards the coast, or of course towards Oslo, depending on the direction. Bergen, being a historic Hanseatic trading centre, has a wide range of things to discover and a very long and interesting history. You'll spend some time not only in Bergen but also Oslo itself. One of the great things you'll see is the famous Viking ship in the aptly named Viking Ship Museum in Oslo itself, and also in central Oslo, the Akerhus fortress. And a little further up the hill, there's the lovely royal palace, which sits looking over the city of Oslo. That's not all we have to offer. You could also enjoy a slightly shorter time in Norway and take the Oslo and scenic train option. This is 2 nights. It still visits the Viking Ship Museum. You'll also get to enjoy the Vigeland Sculpture Park, and perhaps significantly, a private visit to the Munch Museum. This is one of the privileged access things that we offer, and we're able to do so because of our very special relationship with the Munch Museum. So special, in fact, that all of our ships carry an original piece of Munch artwork on board. I won't make it easy for you. You can find it yourself on board. Remember, of course, the Viking Voyager app has an excellent narrated art tour of all the pieces on board. But one of those pieces is indeed an original Munch artwork. The final option to talk about is Iceland and the Golden Circle. This is a 3-night excursion. It centres around the capital city of Iceland, Reykjavik, but it takes you outside of the city to some of the fantastic natural attractions of the island, such as Thingvellir National Park, the famed Blue Lagoon, which is the natural geothermal spa that you'll see with the beautiful azure waters. Very much recommended by myself if you want to experience a natural spa in the open air.
Okay, I hope you enjoyed that look at British Isles Explorer. I'm joined now on the screen with by my colleague Joost. You can see that we've coordinated our outfits this evening, and we've been taking your questions through the website during the course of the presentation. So we'll go to Heather, who's going to be our question master, and let's start with the first question, please, Heather.
Thank you, Matt. Our first question comes from Tim in Fernandina Beach. He asks, will there be an opportunity to visit any of Scotland's famous whisky distilleries?
Shall I take that, Matt?
Please, yes.
The answer is yes. You saw in the presentation that we take you to Highland Park for a very special tour where you get a view behind the scenes. And there is actually, if you go on Viking.TV, and you check out Alistair Miller's series of interviews. He interviews a gentleman from the Highland Park distillery. But there are 2 other opportunities where you can visit the distillery. So there's plenty of ways to see, from the slightly upscale to the more, if you will, the more working type of distillery. You have 3 opportunities in Scotland, and even in Ireland we have a way of at least tasting Irish whiskey, although we don't take you to a distillery. But there's walking and whiskey tasting in Ireland as well.
Thank you, Joost. We have a question from Ken in the United States. He says he's a little confused at the currency that I should carry when travelling to the British Isles on this itinerary. Could you provide some guidance?
Of course. The main currency you'll use is the Great British Pound. And the call to Dublin will be using the euro. Of course, the currency on board the ship is the American dollar, but we are a cashless ship, so you can charge everything on board straight to your shipboard account.
Thank you. Now we have a question from Miki. She says, when visiting the Sissinghurst Castle Gardens, does the visit include a tour of the castle inside?
It's the gardens. The gardens only.
Okay, thank you, Joost. Now we have a question from Orpha in London. She says, is it possible to visit Highclere Castle on this cruise?
Yeah.
Yes. So here, the quick story here is that what we have tried to do on any itineraries that touch the British Isles is figure out a way to bring people there. And on some dates, it doesn't work. Highclere is in incredibly high demand. And sometimes we can just not work out the kind of programming that we want. Whenever we visit Highclere, it's always going to be a little special. It's not going to be something that is a run-of-the-mill type of a program because of the relationship we have. We have an extension that starts off of London, and maybe we can play a little video, Heather or James. Can we maybe show what we do, how we wrap Highclere into this extension?
Explore several of Britain's most loved country estates on this exclusive extension with Viking. Oxford, a city known for its prestigious university, will be your base for 4 unforgettable days. You might recognise Downton Abbey, the fictional estate on PBS Masterpiece, sponsored by Viking. In real life, it's beautiful Highclere Castle, the Jacobean creation of noted architect Sir Charles Barry, who also designed the Houses of Parliament. Beyond the rooms everyone knows is a treasure in Highclere's basement. a rare collection documenting the 5th Earl's Egyptian expedition that discovered King Tutankhamun's tomb. Outside, the castle's expansive gardens include many of the botanicals used to make Highclere Castle's exclusive gin. Nearby is the historic home of another legendary gin, the Bombay Sapphire Distillery. Here you'll learn about their distinctive botanical ingredients and influence on the character of Bombay's taste. Select your botanicals and create your own aroma profile to help you better understand the complexity of Bombay's vapor infusion distillation process that's used to create this unusual spirit. Medieval Broughton Castle is another gem. Home to the Fiennes family, which includes the great explorer and author Sir Ranulph Fiennes. This fascinating estate was part of the PBS masterpiece miniseries Wolf Hall. Broughton Castle also played an important role in the Oscar-winning movie Shakespeare in Love. During your private viewing, be sure to enjoy the Ladies' Gardens, perfectly manicured since the 1890s. Next up, Chavenage House, better known as Trenwith in another PBS period drama, Poldark. Built in 1576 in the Elizabethan style, the home has retained much of its original charm. You'll be warmly welcomed by friendly family members who'll share tales of the home's storied past. And if you're lucky, enjoy some of their delicious homemade marmalade. But as you explore, keep an eye out, because some say Chavenage is haunted. Then it's on to the gardens of Highgrove House, the private home of their Royal Highnesses the Prince of Wales and the Duchess of Cornwall. This Georgian home, nestled in the Cotswolds, is relatively new, built in the 18th century. Its idyllic gardens are what truly sets the home apart. A haven created by His Royal Highness, who once stated, "My aim has always been to try and enhance the setting of the house in the landscape, and above all, to please the eye, warm the heart, and feed the soul." As you make your way between England's great homes and gardens on this relaxing, fully escorted adventure, you'll pass through some of Britain's most picturesque landscapes and quaint villages, before returning each evening to the comfort of your elegant hotel, tucked away in the heart of historic Oxford. Our UK Great Homes Gardens and Gin extension has been thoughtfully curated to provide an unparalleled window into the lives and responsibilities of the British nobility. And with Viking's privileged access, you'll experience these delightful country homes in a way most never will. It's a great way to extend your travels with Viking.
Heather, so do you have another question for us?
Certainly. Our next question comes from Brenda in Boston. She would like to know, is there time to golf at St Andrews or take a golf excursion?
Absolutely there is. The great thing about this itinerary is not only can you play golf in St Andrews, you can play golf in many of the ports around the country. And Joost, do you want to explain a little bit how we can help on board with that process?
Yes, it's simply a matter of going to the explorer's desk, picking a spot, and all the work will be done for you. People will, our team will find out where, what the time frame is, how much it will cost, and so on and so forth. These are, at this stage, by and large, still very much individual arrangements. In the future, we'll probably be looking at doing it more in an organized fashion. But at this moment, it's something that is just a service that we offer on an individual basis.
Thank you. Now we have a question from Kathy in Chicago. She asks, what are the temperatures like in July in the Orkney Islands?
Well, that's a terrific question, Kathy. And the British, of course, talking about the weather is a national pastime. So I can tell you that the temperature in Orkney is a balmy 54 degrees Fahrenheit in July. In fact, if anyone listening wants to have a good resource for weather conditions, there's a great website called holidayweather.com. Just enter the port of call, and you can see the weather that you can expect on your cruise based on annual averages.
Thank you. Steve in the United States says, I really love the British Isles. Is the Shetland ponies excursion included worth it, or which other ones would you suggest?
Yeah, there are two ways of interacting with the ponies. On the included excursion, it's really kind of the road that we take across the island brings you right up to the fence, and the ponies, they're very friendly. They'll come to the fence, and you get to pet them a little bit and take some pictures. And then if you want to have more of an in-depth experience, you can visit the farm and you can interact with the ponies a lot more in-depth. You'll spend about an hour and a half there. And as a matter of fact, in 2019, just for the fun of it, we collected every bit of feedback that we got from the ships and ranked each excursion. And fleet-wide, the visit to the Shetland Pony Farm, and there's a little video that you saw, it ranks number 4 in the world of all the shore excursions we offer. So it's worth it.
Wonderful, thanks, Joost. Michael in San Antonio asks, will there be cultural evenings at local venues such as chamber music and opera?
Yes. Matt?
No, Joost, please,
okay.
This is for you.
Yes, so we do this wherever we can to bring a slice of local culture. Let's say in Portugal we offer fado music. If we're in St. Petersburg, we take people to the Mariinsky. Anywhere we can, we offer slices of local culture. It's a very, very big part of our offer, and it's something that we invest a lot of time and effort in making that happen. So yes, the answer is absolutely yes.
Thank you. We have a question from Felicity in Texas. She says, I'm very interested in World War II history and the life of Winston Churchill. Do you have any excursions which cover this?
We have more than an excursion. We have a whole program that is, you can go there before you start your cruise or right after your cruise. It's called Churchill's Britain. And James, I'm sure we have a video for this.
Sir Winston Churchill. The name towers over Britain's history like a fortress. Follow in the footsteps of this revered and somewhat controversial statesman, and learn about the life that shaped him. London is filled with important sites relating to Sir Winston Churchill, and you'll see all of them staying in the heart of London. The government buildings of Westminster, 10 Downing Street, where Churchill slept in a bunkered annex during the war, St. Margaret's Church, where he married his beloved Clementine, the home where he passed away at age 90, and St. Paul's Cathedral, where his life was commemorated in a funeral befitting a king. Step into the cabinet war rooms after hours with Viking's privileged access. Explore historic artifacts and personal memorabilia. And in the underground bunker of the Harmsworth Room, imagine the switches and dials in motion as operators connected Churchill from the secret transatlantic telephone room to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, so the two men could plot their strategy against the Nazis. Beyond the city, it's off to Chartwell, the Churchill family home in the scenic Kent countryside, and Sir Winston's private retreat from the world. Stroll the expansive estate, the gardens he designed, and where he embraced the serenity of painting. Majestic Blenheim Palace, a UNESCO World Heritage Site, was Churchill's birthplace. You'll be warmly welcomed and enjoy further privileged access to people connected to Churchill. Nearby, visit Churchill's final resting place at St Martin's Church in the village of Bladen. At the formerly top-secret Bletchley Park site, learn more about one of the most significant episodes of the war, when Alan Turing and his team of scientists broke the German Enigma code. Look upon Turing's legendary code-breaking machine, a device that hastened the defeat of the Nazis. Churchill's Britain is a fascinating 5-day, fully escorted immersion into the life of one of England's most notable statesmen. That also includes memorable private dinners, palace lunches, and much, much more. It's a rare opportunity to uncover the real Sir Winston Churchill, one of the most powerful men in British history.
So that was a great look at what is a fantastic trip to Churchill, and especially the war rooms in London. Heather, let's carry on with some more questions, please.
Thanks, Matt. Our next question comes from Steve in the United States. He says, could you give us your thoughts on visiting Scone Palace?
Yes. So the Scone Palace has a lot of history that goes all the way back to the Scottish kings, Robert the Bruce, and it's the other aspect of a visit there is that it's just this perfect castle. I would think though that you need to kind of weigh two options that you would have from Edinburgh. One is Broome Hall, and Matt spoke to that a little bit during the presentation, and the other one is Scone Palace. And if you're more interested in a little bit of, if you will, living history, I would go to Broome Hall, because you're looking at this, you will meet descendants from Robert the Bruce, the King of Scotland. And I think that's just, it's limited access. It's we can only take smaller crowds, but that is just a tad more real, I would say.
Thanks, Joost.
Mm-hmm.
Teresa in the United States says, did I hear you say that Viking offers privileged access to the Tower of London? Could you tell me what that consists of?
Yeah, absolutely we do. There's an absolutely fantastic excursion. It's called Ceremony of the Keys. You can see the full details on the website, but it's a truly unique experience to go and watch a centuries old tradition involving the beefeaters, the ceremonial guards of the Tower of London, locking up the royal palace for the evening. So absolutely not to be missed. Highly, highly recommended.
And it includes a private tour of the tower.
Fantastic, thank you. Paul in the United States asks, while in Bergen, is it possible to visit the Fantoft Stave Church?
Yes, it is. Yeah, we offer an excursion there. Yeah.
Thank you. Patricia in the United States asks, will there be some time to explore Lerwick on our own?
Yes, absolutely. The great thing about the call to Lerwick is it is a full day call, so you can choose to do an excursion in the morning, leaving the afternoon free to explore independently. You can walk from the ship to the town, but we also offer a shuttle service into the centre of the town. And not to be missed is the little cathedral there. Very, very pretty.
Thank you. Barbara in the United States says, we've loved Viking River cruises and the ability to be part of smaller groups of travellers. How would you respond to concerns that on Viking Ocean cruises there are so many more travellers heading out for the excursion?
Yeah, so interesting, really good question, I think, because it goes to the heart of what we do here every day. We have cool jobs, and it's great that we get to map out your travels all over the world. But an enormous part of this is logistics. We spend a lot of time figuring out who departs from the ship when and what this will look like. And we literally sit there with diagrams of how guest flow works. because we do understand. I worked for most of my career with Viking. I worked on the river cruise product, so we understand how important it is not to feel like you're part of the hordes of people that descend upon a town. So we very carefully orchestrate how people depart from the ship. And once you're in town, we don't have you travel in enormous groups. We make sure that you disperse as much as we can disperse you all over any particular location that we are. An enormous part of what we do is really logistics, to make sure that you don't feel like you're part of 930 guests.
Great, thank you, Joost. Peggy in the United States says, what books would be good to read in advance of this excursion? I will be sailing on this itinerary in May 2022.
Actually, Peggy, if you go to the website, under each itinerary in the resources tab, we've actually put together a reading list which complements each itinerary. But I know, Joost, you have a personal favourite that you would recommend.
Yes, Simon Jenkins, A Short History of England. And it is not just about England, it's more about how England eventually became Great Britain. I loved it. Very great book. Great book. Simon Jenkins, Short History of England.
Thank you. Andrea in Nashville says, is it possible to have a tour of the Titanic Museum in Belfast?
Yes, it is. It's part of the shore excursion program, yeah.
Great, thank you. Linda asks, as we cruise through the English Channel, will we be able to see any of the Channel Islands, namely Guernsey?
Linda, I'm afraid not. The track of the ship is quite a way to the north of the Channel Islands. But I would say, as we cruise through the English Channel, you will see a great wealth of maritime activity. And it's wonderful to sit out on your balcony and watch the ships sail by.
Thank you. Vicky in Huntersville says, will the roof be closed over the outdoor pool when I do this cruise in April?
Well, we're back to the English favourite subject of the weather. Of course, the weather in April can be tremendously good. So it's possible the roof will be open. We open it according to the weather conditions on the day. And it's a real little sun trap down there. So it only needs a little bit of sunshine to bring the warmth into the space. And we try and keep it open as much as we can.
Thank you. Linked to that, Lorraine in Austin in Texas asked, could you just tell us a little bit more about the ocean ships?
Goodness, I could give a whole another hour on the ocean ships. But they say a picture paints 1,000 words. And I think, James, could you perhaps play a short video to show the ocean ships in their full splendour?
Are the voyages our river cruise guests asked us to create. With our river cruises, we've always focused on where you go, not just on how you get there. And our ocean voyages are no different. We reinvented the very nature of the ocean cruise, crafting itineraries for more time in port, so you can explore. So you can immerse yourself in the history, music, art and cuisine of the world's greatest destinations. These are voyages for explorers, cruising the Viking way. Introducing our award-winning ocean ships. When we set out to rethink the ocean cruise, it meant reimagining the ship from inside out. Then developing an elegant Scandinavian design to create a spacious, inviting home at sea. These are ships of comfort and culture that will change the way you experience the world. Viking ocean ships are designed for just 930 guests. Our small ships dock in prime locations, closer to the heart of the destinations you want to explore. Using the latest in green technology, all our ships meet the strictest environmental regulations. And with innovative features such as the infinity pool, you'll always be part of your destination, even when you're on board. Dining has also been reimagined, with menus that feature regional specialties made from locally sourced ingredients, as well as always available American classics. And with Viking, you'll find more al fresco dining experiences than on any other ship at sea. Of course, a key part of Viking is our people. Experienced and thoughtful, they bring warmth and insight to every voyage. Whether you sail with us on the world's oceans or her great rivers, you'll always enjoy the exceptional value for which Viking has long been known. Your fare includes a shore excursion in every port, beverages and meals, including wine with lunch and dinner, plus free Wi-Fi, so you can spend your time enjoying your voyage. These are journeys like no other. Travel is about more than just what you see. It's about how you see it and with whom. Set sail with us on voyages that will enrich your mind and nourish your spirit while you explore the world in Viking comfort.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that look at the beautiful Viking ocean ships. I should point out, of course, that's actually a video from a few years ago. And now, of course, there are 6 of these beautiful ships in the fleet. And in fact, in April of this year, the newest ship, the youngest sister, Viking Venus, will join the fleet as well. Heather, let's have some more questions, please.
Thanks, Matt. Our next question comes from Patricia in the United States. She says, if we choose to spend the day in London on our own, does Viking provide transportation?
We don't provide transportation from Greenwich, and there's a really good reason for that, because London as a city has one of the best public transport networks in the world. There's, of course, the famous Tube, which is about a 200-yard walk away from where the ship is berthed. And even closer to that is the Thames Clipper service, which is a fast ferry service that runs all the way up the Thames, through Tower Bridge, past the Houses of Parliament. A wonderful way not only to get into the city, but also to see some of the sights at the same time. So lots of choice, lots of options for transport in and around Greenwich.
Thank you. Teresa in the United States says, if I do this itinerary in the reverse, so starting in London, will I still have access to the ceremony of the keys at the Tower of London?
It depends on the timing, and I would need to look this up real quick. I'm not. Give me a second. Maybe Heather, we can ask another question, and I will just quickly look at the timing.
Absolutely. We'll go to Cynthia in the United States next. She says, in Liverpool, is the maritime and shipbuilding history of the city covered in an included tour? Is there time to visit the Maritime Museum in the dockyards?
Yes, there is time to visit the Maritime Museum. Interestingly, in one direction, the stay in Liverpool is not only a full day, it's also an evening stay as well. So there's lots of time to explore on your own.
Thank you.
Okay, and Heather, to the ceremony of the keys, we can offer this, but only on the day of embarkation. And our experience is that always becomes a little hairy, depending on when people arrive. A lot of people really don't want to go out on the night of the day that they arrive first, because the next day we're leaving London a little earlier. So the option is there, but it becomes a little trickier, if you will. And
Heather, if I could add to Jo's comment, I know we had a question about embarkation times in Greenwich. It's 10 o'clock in the morning, so you are able to access the ship quite early in the day. So you are, if you arrive the day before or that morning, you are able to freshen up on board and then take an opportunity to explore that afternoon or evening.
Thank you very much, Matt. Our next question comes from Jan. They ask, is the Beatles After Hours tour available in the itinerary from London to Bergen?
No, because you don't have time in the evening.
Okay, thank you. Brigitta in Los Angeles says, regarding the walking tours, could we explain a bit more how it works? She has slight knee problems, but a strong spirit. Do you think she'll be okay with the walking tours?
Joost, do you want to take that one?
Sure. I think, we have an indication about the level of difficulty for each excursion. And we work with easy, moderate, and difficult, if you will. It's a three-part division, and it allows you to kind of pace yourself throughout your cruise. Because the fact of the matter is, as the cruise progresses, depending on how much activity you participate in, you may find yourself one morning wanting to do something that's easy rather than something that's moderate. So you can regulate it a little bit. And I would encourage you to check with the staff on the ship. The folks there this is their daily bread to kind of understand the excursions on the one side and the guest needs on the other. And they're really good at assessing and helping you, if they assess, well, you might want to take it easy tomorrow, or this is really a little strenuous, or you might want to move to something that's a little bit more moderate. Those are the people that you would rely on for this. You will, it's fine, because you will maybe make a mistake. You may find that what we think is moderate for you is easy, or vice versa, and you can adjust. The great thing is that you'll have excursions for every speed, if you will.
Thank you. William in Richmond says, how often do you change itineraries and excursions? We're booked until in 2023. Will what we've presented today still be available?
Well, the itinerary part, yes, that will be available. British Isles Explorer is one of our more popular itineraries, so we repeat it year on year. There are some, from time to time, there are changes to the excursion program, but Joost, I think with this particular cruise, it's pretty solid, and there are only minor changes caused by changes to venue openings and so on. So
yes.
Not much change expected at all.
Nope. It's like with red wine, it gets better with age. We'll make it better and better and better.
Thank you. Next question comes from Gary. He says, is it possible to visit the Rosslyn Chapel outside Edinburgh?
Yes, we do have an optional excursion that goes there and spends quite a bit of time there, actually. And deals with, presents the whole Da Vinci Code mystique and everything. Yes.
Fantastic, thank you. Next question from Kathy in the United States. She says, is it possible to do the post-excursion scenic train from Oslo to Bergen?
Yes, there is an extent. Yeah, and that's a brilliant extension. I would do this. You start in Oslo. You spend a little bit of time there, and we have a 4-day and a 2-day trip. The 2-day concentrates entirely on the train ride. If you have the time, do 4 days, because Oslo is really worth it. And then you need some time in Bergen as well. And the train it is really, you know, it's advertised as such, but it's really true. Doesn't matter what time of year you do it. I've done it in summer and I've done it in winter. It's a beautiful ride. It's spectacular. So yes, you can and you should.
Thank you. Sam and Liz in the US, they want to know, is it possible to buy and bring home Scotch whiskey?
Absolutely, it is. No problem at all to buy straight from the distilleries that we visit, and we'll certainly look after it for you on board if you don't want to drink it yourself whilst you're on board. So yeah, no problem at all, and the distilleries are well set up to either let you take it away on the day or help you ship it home.
Thank you. Roger in the United States says, when in Ireland, do we offer an excursion to the Blarney Stone?
To the Blarney Stone.
No, not on this itinerary. The Blarney Stone is down near the city of Cork, Important Cove, and it's a little too far from Dublin. I think probably a 2.5-hour drive.
Yep.
So yeah, just a little bit out of range, unfortunately.
Thank you. Virginia in Richmond in the United States says, is there time to ride on the London Eye when in London?
Absolutely, yeah. And the Thameslink ferry that I spoke of earlier will deliver you directly to the London Eye station. It's advisable to book your tickets in advance, but again, if you remember Jost's comments earlier about the Explorer's Desk, they'd be delighted to help you do that whilst you're on board.
Thank you. We have a nice comment here from Carola and Bill, and they say, love the jackets you're wearing. Are these available on board the ship?
Yeah, well, thank you very much. I won't ask who wore it best, but I think I know. Yes, these wonderful jumpers are available on board the ship. They're made by a Norwegian company called Dala. And in fact, the design that Jost and I are wearing is a special design exclusive to Viking cruises. And if you're interested to see how they're made, you can even take an excursion from Bergen to the factory and make a purchase there from their whole range. And we, of course, carry them on board the ship as well. And they're super comfortable.
Thank you. A question from Tim in the United States. He says, what talks and lectures will be presented on board this cruise?
We do two things. Essentially, our lecture program consists of having a resident historian who will present a series of lectures that is tailor-made to a particular itinerary and that provides a framework, history of the British Isles, Viking history, because especially in the northern part of this itinerary, you're kind of in the world of the Vikings with the Scottish Isles, and then we have guest lectures, and they will also be speaking to topics that are that relate to the itinerary. These people are selected not shortly, but a few months before we cruise. And there's a fairly wide range of different topics that these people may be presenting. It depends on their speciality. We have military historians, we have historians, we have art historians. So it's a fairly wide range.
Thank you, Joost. Julie in the United States asks, is there an excursion that goes near Bath?
On this itinerary, we don't know.
No. Again, it's a little too far away from the ports of call, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Thank you. Greg in Chicago says, could you recommend the best time of year to take this wonderful trip?
Anytime, Greg. The season runs from April through September. Of course, the best weather, the warmest weather will be in August. But August sometimes brings other tourist crowds, and it's also the school holiday period in the United Kingdom. So if you want to travel in good weather but at a quieter time, then I would pick May or September. But the itinerary is great anyway through that season. It's just the number of other visitors that changes.
Thank you. Carla in the United States says, we are scheduled for this trip in 2021, going from Bergen to London. If they want to add a post-trip excursion, for example, the Churchill one, or one that's based in Oxford, should they book that soon? As in, do these often sell out?
They do, especially those that feature high clear, or the ones that feature privileged access. We can only usually get limited numbers of people into these private homes. There's only one counting countess of Carnarvon, so we're limited in what we can do.
Thank you. Sam and Liz would like to know, what is the evening and dining dress code?
We have a smart casual dress code on board. There are some guidance notes on the website as well, so to help you with your packing before the trip. So if you take a look on the website, you'll see some good wardrobe suggestions.
Thank you. Marie would like to know, in Belfast, is it possible to do both the included tour and also the food tour?
Yes, it is. It is. We have a full day in Belfast, so you're welcome to join both. Yes.
Great, thank you. And this is probably the last question we've got time for tonight. This comes from Kay in the United States. She says, are there any ports where one has to take a tender from the ship?
Yes, Kay, there are. Ullapool is the port where we tender in. I don't think we've mentioned Ullapool much in the questions, but it's a beautiful little fishing town in the Highlands, and it's a great way to arrive into the destination, taking a tender just a short distance, about half a mile into the pier in the centre of town. So Heather, I think that's all we have time for.
Yes, thank you, Matt.
Okay, thank you very much for being our question master. Thank you very much to everyone at home for the great questions. It's really wonderful to have an opportunity to share our enthusiasm and love for the British Isles with everyone. A special thanks to Joost for helping me out with some of the more technical excursion questions. And that's it for now. I will say thank you very much for watching, and we're going to leave you with one of my favourite videos, which is the naming video of the Viking Sea, which of course took part in Greenwich, London. So thank you very much for watching, and we hope to see you again soon.
What began with a quiet dawn quickly turned into a day of celebration for Viking and, of course, for me. Watching the Viking Sea glide through the Thames barrier, I was so proud as her godmother on this inaugural visit. After a quick pirouette in front of the iconic O2 and a bit of gentle guidance, she moored right in the heart of London for her christening. As a small ship, she has that type of privileged access.
Attention all stations, all lines fast and secured, we have arrived Greenwich.
As day turned to night, the christening of Viking Sea unfolded, a celebration stretching from bow to stern, as she was officially welcomed to this legendary maritime port. The event included a tribute to the spirit of the early Vikings, who pushed the boundaries of travel and discovery as they explored England, the whole of Europe and the far corners of the world. Plus the brave visionaries who followed in their wake. Men like Fridtjof Nansen, who explored the North Pole. Leif Erikson, who discovered America. Thor Heyerdahl, who sailed across the Pacific on the homemade raft Kon-Tiki. And Roald Amundsen, first to set foot on the South Pole. And on hand, a modern-day Viking, Geir Røvik, who spearheaded the building of an original Viking longship, providing us with an authentic copy of a ceremonial Viking axe.
It's, of course, a great honor to be the godmother of Viking Sea. Today, I'd like to thank those that have brought her to completion. Richard Revere and SMC, our architects. Richard with his background in boutique hotel designs, and SMC with their maritime architecture expertise. Thank you very much for all your efforts on the ocean ships as well as on our river ships, of course. And then, Erling Friedenberg, you are amazing. The teams that you create, the family feeling that you give our staff is fantastic. And that brings us to our guests, all of you out there. It's an honor to work for you and to create experiences both on board and ashore. The last person I'd like to thank is a lady who is not here today. She's here in spirit, as she is here in spirit with me every day. That is my grandmother, Mamsen. She was my best friend, and she had great values. She was hardworking, disciplined, honest, had a lot of integrity. I miss her very much, but I know that she would be incredibly proud of the company that you have built, Papa, and the values that you represent. She would have been very proud as a mother, as I am as your daughter. So thank you for all you have done for all of us. With that, I think I have a ship to name, and I have two helpers. I have my real goddaughter, Maja, and I have our four-legged little girl, Finse. Do you know your line?
At last, the moment we'd all been working toward was upon us. It was incredibly exciting.
I name you Viking Sea. May God bless you and all who sail on you.
And with that, the Olavskore, the Olav choir of the Norwegian Seamen's Mission, joined the celebration. The highlight of the evening was our special guest and friend, Sissel, one of Norway's most beloved sopranos.
And the world will be as one.
You did it well, and I think you gave a very good speech, and you stand for good values. So thank you very much on behalf of us in Viking. It's fantastically nice that you did this job today, and you did it beyond expectation, as usual. Maja, thank you so much. Okay, well done, Karina and Maja.
As godmother of the Viking Sea, the christening was a very moving moment for me. It was also an impressive milestone for all the people who've worked so hard to make Viking the company it is today. And hopefully it was a ceremony that will long be remembered by the City of London. Viking Sea is the beautiful sister to the award-winning Viking Star. Together they bring the comfortable, welcoming ambiance and spaciousness of our river cruise vessels to the world's great oceans. With just 930 guests, Viking Sea and Viking Star are small ships that have been thoughtfully designed throughout, to enrich every aspect of the journey, making it easier than ever to explore more of the world in complete comfort.